Hey, it's Sarah. Welcome back to Roadworthy. So, I feel like this is a week of unpopular opinions. Potentially because I've been feeling a little slumpy. And I'm going to blame it on all these, I'm going to blame it on the Booker International long list. I DNF'd Lost on Me. I DNF'd Crooked Plow after about 50 pages. I just wasn't even gripped. And the Silver Bone, I should have DNF'd. So I feel like 3 for 3 did not work. And then I was looking at all the other books that I had from various long lists, and it was starting to feel like homework. And it made me not want to read any of these books. So I returned them all. That's okay. Yeah, this always happens. This is why I never read a long list. Sarah Republic of Consciousness Prize was the only long list I've ever successfully managed to read several books from. I always do this to myself. I know I do this to myself. So why do I get excited and think I'm going to read these books? They all sound amazing. And then I start hearing they're not amazing. And now I'm hearing more people talk about they haven't really been impressed with the Booker International long list. So anyway, will this be a lesson to me? I doubt it. Should it be a lesson to me? Yes, of course it should be. Will it? No, it won't. I'm sure, when the Booker Prize long list gets announced, I'm sure I'll be all in, and excited and, anyway, so that slumpiness may have carried over into some of my other reading. So I DNF'd The Rachel Incident by Catherine Donahue. This is the group read for this year's Irish Readathon. This is about Rachel and her BFF James. They meet, 18, 19 years old. They're both working in a bookstore and move in together. James is a closeted gay, and Rachel, at the opening of the book, has this long-term boyfriend. And I DNF'd this book about halfway through, and I was reading Goodreads reviews, and there is a major plot element that happens in the second half of the book that I didn't even get to, and I just wasn't interested. I didn't care. I liked Rachel as a character. I thought her sort of 19-year-old angst was well done, wanting to be respected, wanting to be heard, yet at the same time making really stupid, horrible decisions. So she has a crush on one of her professors, and James totally encourages this. And in an effort to, seduce him, they invite him to do a book launch at their bookstore. Now, his book is a total, largely academic book on, an aspect of the Victorians, right? This is not going to be filling up the bookstore. And at the book launch, where Rachel is supposed to seduce her professor. It turns out that James does. And so there we go. And both Rachel and James sort of become enmeshed in Dr. Burns and his wife's lives. And that's sort of the plot. A lot of this book revolves around Rachel and James's dynamic. So again, they're supposed to be besties. They talk about, Rachel, this book is told from Rachel's point of view. And so she's always telling you how James is the most important person in her life. And in some, but it never really felt that way to me as the reader. And I think that is potentially the fault of having this book told from Rachel's perspective. You never hear James's perspective. And so when you're hearing, we are the most important people in one another's lives, you kind of can't quite believe it because you never hear James say it. And a lot of their interactions are actually quite juvenile. So they talk about, going out, they end up drinking, 3 or 4 nights a week, and, picking up random men, and they both encourage each other in this behavior, even though they're both pretty financially strapped, and they encourage sort of this promiscuous behavior, but think that they're really responsible and caring for one another if they agree they're never going to abandon each other on one of these nights. So, in some ways they feel like they're supportive of one another, but yet they completely undermine one another. They're trying to save money to move to London. It's so like I said, a lot of this book hinges on their relationship, and I just never quite bought into, the primacy of this relationship. And James just never felt like that great of a friend to me in some ways. So even as the tension was ratcheting up, I just felt less and less interested. I did finish The Faraway World. This is a short story collection by Patricia Engel. It was all right. A lot of these stories are diaspora stories. So Patricia Engel herself is a Colombian writer teaching and living at the University of Miami. So there's a lot of stories about, let's say, people in Colombia, sort of working the daily grind, desperately wanting to escape, wanting to go to America, just escape the crushing constraints that they live in their home worlds. And then you have stories of people in the United States who are being crushed by, the immigrant experience. And so some of these stories are maybe, it just feels like a lot of crushed dreams. or just, yeah, the daily grind and just wearing away of your soul, working in these unhappy relationships because you think that might be a ticket to your way out, just, I did read Patricia Engel's novel, Infinite Country, which I liked a lot. A lot of similar themes in that book, but I liked that a lot. And I did like a couple of these stories. It just overall... So I'm currently listening to and almost done with Loot by Tania James. This is a historical fiction book on the Carol Shields long list. This is about a boss who is part of the Tipu, part of Mysore in India. He is gets invited to the Tipu Sultan's court to build a automaton with a Frenchman. I forget his name. But they build this tiger automaton that it is really cool. It has an organ inside and bellows inside, so that when you play it, there's this groaning noise, and it's hard to tell, is that growling and groaning coming from the tiger, or is that growling and groaning coming from the British soldier who the tiger is attacking, and it's biting the soldier's neck. This automaton is a real thing and exists at the Victoria and Albert Museum. So I will put a picture up here of it because it's kind of like, it's one of those kind of bonkers things. But after that, in 1899, the British come and defeat the Tipu, which is how they get this automaton, and it ends up at the V&A. So the French are drawn out, the British come in and take over, the Tipu's killed, the Frenchman returns to Rouen, and he invites a boss to come back with him to study to be a clockmaker, so that he can go on and get some of those fundamentals of mechanics and engineering and that kind of thing, so that he can go on and make automatons, which is what he really wants to do. He's got some adventures on the sailing ship that you learn about. He's got some adventures as he makes his way to Rouen, and he gets to Rouen only to find that his potential master died. Stuff happens, right? I'm almost done, and I think the only reason I'm sort of making it through this book is I'm listening to it on audio, and I'm busy. I'm weeding. I'm engrossed, walking the dog, hiking, doing stuff. And so listening to this book is just kind of in the background while I'm doing this stuff. And this book, it's kind of 3-star to me. It's an adventure story. I do like a boss, but I'm not like super invested in his success. This book has been compared to Washington Black, which I can kind of see, which in that book, Washington Black was a formerly enslaved person who's sort of taken to all these different places and Europe and stuff. So there's a certain fish out of water element to that book. And this book, Loot, has sort of the same thing. You know, Abbas is taken to France, right? He's Muslim. You know, he's kind of, obviously he's dark skinned. So he's kind of, you know, very much alone in France, trying to make his way. So it's interesting because I've read 3 books on the Carol Shields long list that are all historical fiction. And they're all very different. So like I said, Lou is sort of really this adventure story. Brotherless Night, which almost reads like a memoir of the Sri Lankan Civil War, being told from this first person point of view. And then you have A History of Burning by Janika Oza, that is sort of family, you know, multi-generational story about an Indian family that goes to Uganda and then ends up going to Canada. So interesting to have 3 historical fictions like that on the long list. 3 very different types of historical fiction, and 3 kind of different levels of success for me. So, like I said, Loot is to me the least character driven of these 3 books, and I found Brotherless Night to really be the most. And again, I think it being told from that first person perspective, you really get her, Asashi, describing the events and describing her feelings and reactions to events, which you don't really get in the other 2 books. I don't know, you know, interesting observation. You know, again, 3 very different books, and I think these books might appeal perhaps to different audiences. I don't know. Interesting. But I certainly responded to them differently. And in my mind, Brotherless Night is the better book, the better of the 3. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm floundering with my reading this week. I do have some other books from the Carol Shields Prize is sitting here at home to read. So, you know, maybe I'll get to those. I am almost done with Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange. So we'll talk about that next week. So we'll see. And it's People April next week, so who knows? So that's all I've got this week. I'm hoping that now that I've abandoned my International Booker long list enthusiasm, I can get back to reading what I want to and get back my reading enthusiasm, my mojo. All right, hope you're having a good week, reading week, and I will catch you in the next one.